Alright guys, my name is Java and today I have a really special guest on this show, Niwar Nasim from Nasim Landscaping. And Nasim is a really inspirational guy, honestly. He came from Kurdistan as a refugee to USA and now he has scaled his landscaping company to over $10 million. Like honestly, this is really inspirational and today he has really value to share with you guys. So let's go everyone. अरे तो thanks a lot as well. So for people who don't know, like Naseem, like your story is literally so amazing and inspiring to even me as well. Like you came from Kurdistan and you came to like USA as a refugee, and now you have built such a massive company in landscaping industry. So I would love to like know a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, I am a former refugee. I immigrated to the United States in 1997 um, with my family as part of an asylum operation, and we landed in the United States in 1997. And a year after we came to the United States, my father started a lawn care business to help support the family and start, making money and essentially to begin a new life in the United States. And he had some agriculture background, so that's where the landscape idea came from. And his prior experience in Kurdistan, Iraq, was he was a veterinarian, and it was difficult for him to restart his license here because he had to go through medical school again, and was already in his 50s at the time, and he didn't have the energy to do that. And there were six kids in the family, total of eight people, and there was really no time. It was we had to make money, and landscaping is one of the easiest trades to get into in the United States. It's a low barrier entry. You can essentially, if you have a pickup truck and a lawnmower, you can probably start a business. There's not many businesses out there like that you can do that. And so that was a natural fit. And so growing up, I came here at the age of 10 years old. A year or two after we got here, we were already working. My dad made us work sometimes after school and summertime and weekends. That was basically our upbringing in America. We didn't really have a normal upbringing. And so we did that about, you know, 10 years or so. And then in 2007 and 8, there was a big recession um, crash that happened, impacted worldwide actually, but it was very, very severe in the United States. And that impacted my dad's company at the time really, really significantly. He had the vast majority of his business with just one customer, and that customer went away, and unfortunately, and so my dad's business almost went out of business. There was hardly any work left, and I was getting close to being done with school at the time in college, and there was a lot of uncertainty happening in the marketplace, and my siblings were also kind of going their own way, finding their own thing. And my dad didn't really have the energy to sort of rebuild the company back up. He did pretty well for himself during that 10-year run or whatever, but it was pretty difficult times back then. And so I got out of college in 2010. It was very difficult to find a project, a career really in any field. And so it was a slow recovery coming out of that economic turn. And I went and worked in retail for a short period of time while still doing some landscaping projects on the side. And I realized very quickly that I loved the landscaping industry and I wanted to stay in it. My dad had a couple of trucks and a couple of trailers and some used equipment. I went to my dad and basically asked him, "Hey, since you're not going to build this thing back up, I would like to continue this and kind of create a career for myself." I was in my early 20s. I had nothing to lose, and I made an agreement with my dad. Shook his hand, said, "I'll pay you back when I can, Dad." And that was the beginning of my journey, 2010. So here we are, 15 years later. It's kind of neat looking back and sharing the story.
100%. Like, first of all, like, how you came from like Kurdistan, and how like it was hard for your dad as well to put food on the table, because at the time he had to like, of course, get the license, and he didn't have the time and energy and resources at his age. And of course he had like six kids as well to feed. So that's kind of impressive. And like, I have some follow-up questions over here. Like, you said you like had no, you did not have a normal upbringing. Like you mentioned, you were doing landscaping at the age of 10. So like, what made you passionate about landscaping and pursuing your career as a landscaper?
Yeah, what I mean by a normal upbringing is, we didn't have in America, children are able to go to summer camps and play sports and, do things that a lot of your everyday children do. And we did some of that, but for the most part, we helped our family out. My dad and it was a big family affair. I mean, we had employees, but employees are all family, and so we all together helped each other and the family out to make ends meet. And that's what I mean by that. I was working during middle school and high school, after school, weekends, summer breaks. Work was instilled in me. Work ethic, I should say, was instilled in myself and my siblings at a very young age. Not very common in the United States, but that's what it was. And um, I didn't really. I think at that time I didn't really know that I liked landscaping. I just did it because I had to, and I think there was times that I actually did not like it at all because when you're growing up and you're a teenager and you have all these ideas in your mind, you're still developing, of course, in many ways. And I thought I wanted to be some kind of a corporate person, suit and a tie, and um, I was going to work in some big organization as an executive. I had no idea. Never in my mind did I think that you can actually have a career in the landscaping industry. And so, to be honest with you, the thought of um, being in this industry, and let alone being a business owner, an entrepreneur, didn't really strike, um, didn't really become a realistic thought until about 2010 when I made that commitment that I was going to go all in and sort of begin this journey. But prior to that, I had no desire or, I thought I was just going to join a big company and sort of take off in that corporate ladder and be part of something big, whatever that was, at whatever industry. I did not know, but I always knew that I wanted to make something of myself.
That's impressive. Like, first of all, as you mentioned, like, mostly that's what I've also noticed. Like, most people, or maybe most kids, don't have the work ethics. So it's amazing that you have that from young age. And now, like, at what point did you realize that not only are you doing landscaping, but you are also building a business and also building as a business owner yourself?
Yeah, thank you. When I started, I only, it was just myself and another employee. Um, I never thought about becoming a big company one day. Um, there was really no plan in the beginning, but because I was young still myself, and keep in mind I'm in my early 20s, 22, 23 at this time, and I don't know what it's like to be a business owner. I had to learn everything and sort of begin a journey of not only becoming a professional, but I'm still growing up. So I'm learning all these different skills. I've got a college degree, so I'm educated. I can speak, I can communicate, I can do, So that was definitely nice to have that. But from an industry standpoint, I had to learn from. I mean, I had the experience as a kid growing up, learning how to push a lawnmower and shoveling and using a piece of equipment, but the industry itself, it's so broad and there's so much to learn. And I it was very much almost like starting, it was actually starting from scratch. I mean, I had to literally build it from the bottom up. Um, and so it was myself and another guy, and we went to work. You roll your sleeves up and you go to work, and you don't think about anything else other than I gotta work and I gotta make money at this point. I mean, this was what the mentality was for the first 2 to 3 years of just being boots on the ground, wearing every single hat you can imagine, from the guy that pushes a lawnmower, that uses the line trimmer, the guy that puts down sod, the guy that answers the phone calls, the guy that bills the customer, the guy that goes and does the estimating, the guy that does everything. And it was like that for actually quite a period of time. But as you add work, then you add additional people. Now you're not having to drive the truck, so now I have more time to go look for even more customers. And you just it's a progression of different steps that come along as you stay in that journey. Um, you bring in help when you have the work. You got to first find the work, and once you have it, then you got to get the help. Make sure that they can execute the work, and it's just little by little you build.
100%. I totally agree. So you mostly had like in your teenage years, it was mostly like physical work itself. And you mentioned like you had the college degree so that it helped you with like communication and how to talk to people. Like, so how did you like go about building relationships and like communicating with people? Because that is something really important nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, being in, when you're in a role of an entrepreneur, you have no choice. You have to go talk to people. People have to get to know you. So when you're putting yourself out there and you got a phone number and you have a website and the phone calls start ringing or people find out what you're doing, you're going to get phone calls and you're going to get requests. And so, that was just organic for me. As the calls came in, you'd go and you meet people, you shake hands, and you begin dialogue, and that starts sort of your journey on how to negotiate, how to have intellectual conversations about money, and um, you're learning on the job. This is how it's done, and every single call and interaction you're getting better and sharper and more precise. Your confidence builds up. These are critical components of building yourself from a being a professional and communicating effectively. In addition to that, I joined some local organizations in our industry. In my area, the Washington Association of Landscape Professionals, and so I wanted to be surrounded by other landscape professionals and learn what they were doing, and attending some conferences and home shows and just exposing myself to the industry on a different level so I could see how others are doing things and what was out there. That really helped me out as well because at this time I'm still trying to find myself. I'm still trying to create an identity. What do I want to be? Are we going to be just a landscape maintenance company? Are we going to be a design build company? Are we going to be a sprinkler company? Are we going to do all these things? The landscaping industry is very broad. You can be a specialist in many different areas. Um, so at this time, I'm a sponge, and I'm just soaking everything I can in so I can just build myself and my acumen.
100%. So two follow-up questions that I am thinking right now based on your previous input. Like first of all, like you mentioned that first you had to find the work and then you have to find the people to actually do the work itself. So that's the first question I have for you. So what will you say about like hiring the right people to do the job so that way you can build more relationships and you can build more trust as well in the industry itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a challenge even to this day. I mean, we're a bigger company now than we were obviously 5, 10 years ago, but it's a challenge even to this day. We have a lot of needs in some areas of our business um, where we need a specialist individual for a critical role, but I can't really quite afford the right person for that until we bring our sales to a certain target before I can fully say, hey, we're ready to bring on this individual. The same applies when you're much smaller, right? Let's say you're a one man band and you're trying to start your business up. You want to hire a foreman or a project lead. Um, you got to have the work in order to be able to put him in that role. um, I struggle with this even to this day. I need help in specific areas, but and I want to go bring that person in so we can sort of, in my mind, think that I want to build the infrastructure correctly, so then I can, you know, be ready to go sell. It's actually the exact opposite. The worst thing to do is add more costs and expenses, and then depend and hope on going and finding more work. It's a very critical component, and I have to constantly remind myself you have to find the work first. There's a saying: you build a fire, and then you figure out how to contain the fire. And so that's what it comes down to. And so that was true 10, 12 years ago. That's true today. You want to make sure you have the work, the revenue is there, so you can support adding, you know, whether it's people, equipment, overhead such as building a new website, SEO, or new uniforms, whatever it is. You can't just put yourself in debt and think that you have to look like this big professional company and there's no work. It's not a recipe that's going to work.
100%. So first you have to have the work and then you have to able to fulfill that work. And now what
That's right.
is like your opinion? Like you mentioned like you joined some associations as well, like I think so Washington Association and some other as well. So what's your opinion on like mentorship itself, like learning from the people that have already done what you want to do and what you want to achieve in life as a business owner?
It's critical. It's absolutely critical. You know, landscaping, even though it's a low barrier entry to get into and easy to get into, it's just like any other business profession. To be sustainable and to make it and to grow, you have to treat it just like any other. It's another business. It has its complexities. Whether you want to be a small company or medium size or large, it doesn't matter. You have to treat it like a very serious entity, and nobody starts out being an expert at anything. And the beauty is that we're living in a time, where you can find a lot of information on the internet. There's vast amount of proven successful, you know, experts in our industry that share information free. I mean, you can find people on YouTube and all these social media platforms where you have some really really good people that share amazing content. And um, I've always been huge into education, mentorship, consulting, anything that you can help, that you can absorb and utilize to make yourself better so that you can be the best version of yourself and take some of those principles and skills and apply it to your own business. Um, it's critical. You have to. You can only learn so much on your own. There's people that have done this over and over in time, and they've made mistakes. And so to learn something that somebody else has done and they've already made the mistake, why not open up your mind and listen and absorb that information so that when you're in that position and you run into that situation, that you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, or I will do that because I've heard this, I've seen this. It's critical. I mean, you want to the journey of learning never stops. There's a saying that if you're not growing, you're dying. It's the same applies to your mind. You have to constantly grow it till the very very end. You never want to stop that journey of learning.
That is amazing. Really solid advice that you have given. So, at what point, like, as you mentioned, like, first, of course, you need to have the work, and then you need to have people to fulfill the work. And then there are overhead costs like equipments and website, SEO, and like uniform itself that shows you are a branded company, like a sort of way to show that you're a professional company. So at what point did you invest in all of those to make sure that you are a branded and trustworthy company?
Yeah, I mean the journey starts from day one, right?
Was
Yeah, the journey starts from day one. Obviously, you can't go out and buy trucks day one and uniform day one, and but with steps, right? I started out with just myself and another guy when we were rebuilding the company, and I went out and I think I bought like 5 or 10 T-shirts, right, and a couple of jackets, so just enough for a couple of guys. Um, I had a couple of trucks for my dad that I was fortunate, used trucks, but I was fortunate that I didn't have to go to the bank and spend a bunch of money at the time. And I was fortunate that I could make a deal with my dad and essentially buy those trucks from him. So that was nice. But we had a website already and needed some work, so I went in. I found a local guy in our community, and I paid him some money, and he helped me with the SEO at the time. And of course, right, as you start doing work, you need equipment. You need new mowers. You need new blowers. I mean, the work the work you generate and the revenue that comes in, it starts that process of acquiring. I mean, when the work comes in, that that opens the floodgates of things that you need to have in order to be able to execute the work. So it's cyclical. It's connected. The work has to come, and then you figure out how to do it. So sometimes in the beginning of, especially when you're smaller, you can't just go buy equipment just because you got a job, even if it's a big job. You want to be very careful. You want to rent equipment as much as you can. And to be honest, even if you're a medium and larger company, if it makes a lot of sense to rent, rent. Um, there are some conversations about when it's the right time to buy versus own or lease, and that's happy to discuss that. But it's you want to keep your expenses low as much as you can. That's really the key, and so the workload will tell you when you need to buy whatever it is that you need.
100%. Because this is like really common mistake like new business owners make, that they don't keep their expenses low. They might invest in something that's not going to benefit their business, or maybe the expenses are really high, so that's going to be a bottleneck of them scaling their business to the next level. So with that being said, like you have, of course, you started from scratch, you worked inside the business itself, and now you have grown your business to a multi-million dollar landscaping company. So what do you think is the key to scaling? Because you have been like featured on Inc. 5000 as well. So these are like really key accomplishments that you have done. So what will be the key that you will say is to scaling?
The key to scaling is you got to have. There's a few key components to scaling. Number one, you got to have good people. Um, you have to have good systems. Systems that help you automate processes. So an ERP system, and we have a lot in our industry. You as we're in a time that's everything's moving so fast. You have AI components now just about in every industry and aspect of life, and so our industry is no different. You got to be on top of these things and utilize systems and processes that help expedite and fast track manual things. um, so you really want to know what these things are, how and when to apply them to your business. And so people, processes, and systems, um, gotta have revenue. I mean, sales, right? You gotta know how to get to work. Um, and so when you have good people and good processes in place, you can scale, right? But if you have just good people and maybe bad processes, eventually that's going to fall apart, because good people, they want to have effective systems, and if they don't have good processes and systems, those good people will get frustrated and they will eventually probably leave, or there will be enough friction that's going to be built up and it's just not going to be sustainable. So you can have the most amazing team, but if you don't have good processes and systems and tools and resources for them, they're not going to want to stay. Conversely, you could have the most amazing systems and the best things in place, but if you don't have good people, they're not going to utilize those systems. So it's a balance. You got to have good people, good systems. You got to understand the why we have these systems, why we use these things, why it's important to use these things. Um, and then once those things are aligned and the work is coming in, it starts to really kind of turn and become a machine. And that's the beginning of scaling. You start adding more good people, and you bring department heads, add additional systems for additional things as the work comes in. And that's, you're not scaling. You're scaling, going past where you're at. Again, you're not growing, you're dying. So it's that mind. You have to have that mindset, just constantly improving and growing. And it's not just about more and more revenue, but it's about being better. So that's a way of growing. It's not just about more revenue, more dollars. Even if there's nothing wrong with staying at a certain size, but you always want to be better and improve your craft to just get better every single day.
100%. You need to have a balance between good people and good systems. That's the key to scaling, right? And also, like, one thing that I
Absolutely.
think is really important, like, as you mentioned, like, during recession in 2007 and 2008, like, your father had only a major client one client that was a major part of his business. So how do you think a new business owner can avoid being in that same situation when, let's say, their major client leaves and they are just left with nothing?
Yeah, I mean that was a lesson that I learned from my father early on. um, he knew also that he was exposed, and English was his second language, and it's very hard for him to go out there himself and to try to diversify. And that's really what it comes down to: is to you have to diversify. You cannot, put the saying, put all of your eggs in one basket. You have to diversify. So whether that's more than one customer, whether that's doing different service lines, you cannot just do one thing and only for one customer, because it's too risky. Things happen that put you in jeopardy, whether it's an economic downturn, whether it's I mean, it could be anything. And so you want to be in a position that if anything dramatic happens, that you have another area that's still, at the very least, helps pay the bills. Sometimes your best project person might leave, or um, God forbid, if an accident were to happen. It's not just about having one customer. It's you don't want to you don't want to be too reliant on anything, whether it's a customer, one one main employee that has the keys to everything. You want to diversify yourself, and that starts from yourself. You want to take your own skill set and to try to delegate your skills into as many people as possible. um, and that's how build value. It's not good to be the only guy that knows how to do everything. You want to delegate your skills and your responsibilities to others, and that's a form of leadership too, by the way, is when you have effectively learned how to delegate. And so, very broad topic, but diversity, diversification in every aspect, from clientele to service mix to your own skill set. You just do not want to be exposed, um, to a point where if something were to happen, then you're gonna just fall apart.
Essentially, you want to build a business that doesn't run only based on you. You want to build a business that runs itself, not dependent
One
on
hundred
you.
percent, and that's exactly it. And on a customer, right? I see a lot of younger businesses starting out, and they'll get a contract with a big national company. We made this mistake very early on, and they will go do 10, Walgreens or Rite Aid or some of these like national chains, and they'll work as a subcontractor for these big management companies. And oftentimes those companies, not all, but a lot of them, have very predatory business practices where they don't pay a fair market share of what that service costs. Or they'll delay payment for that subcontractor. And so I see this happening to this day with a lot of younger, smaller, starting companies, where they'll just go in, they're eager, they want to get their name out there, and they want to prove themselves and say, I've got commercial work, but they're really, just acting as I mean, you're a subcontractor that's under the full control over a big entity who really has the work. It's not your work. You're just working for someone else, and they're keeping likely the vast majority of those margins and profits, right? And so you want to be very careful with that. You can't just start off and doing all work just for that company. There are some good ones out there. I'm not saying they're all bad. Um, but I see that happening a lot in our industry. So you want to, if you're going to do that, maybe take on one or two stores if you go that direction, but then also do a bunch of residential and do cleanups and do some projects. So you have different revenue coming from different areas in the beginning, that is. And as you start to build and become more skilled, then you start to really focus. Are you really good at maintenance? Are you really good in design build? Are you good in cleanups? What it could be all of them. You know, there are companies that do it all. But as you get more seasoned in your journey and you grow and grow, you start to become a lot more refined in what you're good at. At our company, we still do a lot of stuff under the landscape umbrella, but we don't consider ourselves a high end residential design build company. Like there are some really, really great companies in our market that do fantastic, very luxury type landscaping. We can do some of that stuff, but we're not that company. You know, we can put in some beautiful walkways and walls, and but we're not going to build the fancy, pergolas and outdoor kitchens and very intricate, masonry. It's just not our specialty, And I know companies that do that, and I can reference those companies if I need to. But we're a commercial maintenance company predominantly. That's our identity, and it took a long time to get to this point. It took about 7 or 8 years before I realized that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go down that road. Again, we still do residential projects. We still do retaining walls. We still do walkways, but it's to a certain extent. So
At some point you need to like find your specialty and like double down on that. That's what you are saying. That's totally, I agree on that, because if you are doing all of the things, like people want something that they are like either special in or maybe they are the expert in, because they want uh, some expert solutions, right? So I have some questions, because like landscaping essentially is like a seasonal business for most people out there. They might not have some work in the winter. So how do you like tackle that, like the seasonal thing itself?
yeah, we're pretty fortunate that in our market that we have we're not a snow market, but in our region it does get cold enough where um, we do have to, like right now, like during the last 2 3 weeks, it's been very cold and it's below freezing. So when that happens, we offer a snow and ice management service where we go out and we spread de-icer, essentially treated salt in front of businesses and uh, various institutions to help with anti slipping and anti icing, and so we do a lot of that. It's good work. It's highly profitable work. It's very risky work, but it's a service line that we offer that allows us to become more of a year-round business versus just a seasonal business. Because you're right, the landscape industry is generally a seasonal business, but if you can figure out how to add some service lines in those winter months. Some companies do, holiday tree lighting and, decorating houses with lights, and they do landscape lighting. So you just have to look at your market and see what you could do that complements your business. That was always a struggle of mine in the very beginning. I would struggle, especially the first 5 6 7 years of our company. How do I keep my guys busy? How do I keep my foreman busy after November, October, November, when all the leaves have fallen down? How do I keep these guys on payroll for November, December, January, February? Uh, you know, you figure that out by adding service lines. You also have to make sure you have recurring monthly contracts so you have consistent revenue throughout the year versus just all of your revenue comes in and then you're just dry in those winter months. You cannot build a business that way. It's a subscription model world that we're in now, and everything is a monthly payment. So that's how it works. And so you have to build your business that way. You have to amortize your cost, across 12 months, um, and find work in those winter months that you can keep your staff busy. So we've been very fortunate to keep our staff busy year round. It slows down a little bit. They're not working as many hours, of course, in the wintertime, but they're still getting paychecks, and we give them work, and we try to keep them busy as much as we can. It's a short season for us, so we're going to get back to full time schedule at the end of February, and March. We'll be back to full operation. Yeah.
Amazing. So, like, all of the advice you have given is really amazing. And, like, honestly, you do not want to only rely on like one of projects as well. As you mentioned, you need to have some recurring monthly revenue. If you don't have that, like, if let's say you stop getting some clients or maybe some work in the winter season, then your revenue stops there. So, like, your journey is really amazing, and what you have shared is really amazing. What would you do? Like, looking back, what would you change differently, or what would you have done differently to be where you are at?
Yeah, I think about that question often. What would I do? And it's not that I regret anything. That everybody's journey is unique in their ways, and I'm very thankful for where I'm at in my journey. But if I could, and we all have that, what would I do differently? Um, I would probably, um, I would take training and self, and I was always big into education and training and self development, but I would start that journey day one. I would try to get involved in organizations day one, get involved with here in the United States, and specifically if you're in this industry, get involved with NALP. That's the National Association of Landscape Professionals. Start attending some of the conferences at a very young, early age of your company. And I know there's a cost component to that, of course, but try to budget for that. Try to attend at least one or two events, because what those events do, they really help you uh, gain inspiration. You meet really good people. You meet mentors. You're going to meet other people like yourself that are in the same journey. So you start to kind of build a network of people very early on, and many of those people will be glad to help you grow. And so I wish I would have done that early on. I always thought, oh, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. I'm too young. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And when I got to a certain age, that's when I said, oh, I'm ready now. And now I'm like, wow, how different would it have been if I had just kind of put myself out there even earlier? Um, so I think that's what I would have done, is just get involved much, much earlier. I think that would have potentially accelerated my growth even further than it is today. That, and I would say the other thing on top of that is I would try to one of the biggest advices that I give to anybody is that when you're building your company, don't think that you're small. Even if you're one guy, when you're talking to somebody on the phone, when you're building your website, when you're buying your first truck, think of it as if you're a big company. For example, if a phone call's coming in, don't say, I will come and do your estimating and I will do your project. We will come and do your project. You want to give this impression that it's not just you. And you have to really start putting that in your head, that there's more than just you. There's a we, there's a us. And that starts to make you think bigger. And so when you're buying your first truck, if you're going to buy a Chevrolet, try to stick with the Chevrolets. Don't buy a Chevrolet, then go buy a Ford, then buy a Dodge, then buy, because you want to create a standard professionalism. You want to be everything to be consistent. That's a good look. It doesn't matter what you pick, but you want to be consistent, and people like that. That's a form of professionalism. If you're going to create a website, Don't just create a website that's, you know, uh, I mean, you got to start somewhere. It's got to be simple in the beginning, but you add on to it as time goes and it evolves. But don't change your website every 3 months. Grow and evolve with that. Your uniform. Take some time and look at your brand. Um, and is that a name that you think that 10 years from now, can you look at that? Let's say you have 50 employees in 10 years. Is that the same name and logo you want to have in 10 years? Think about down the line. Think about what would be when you're bigger. And so obviously not everybody has the desire to be a big company. But even if you're just one guy, three guys, five guys, 10 guys, people want to work with a company that they feel like they're professionally ran. And so give this, build everything around that there's just, you're not the only guy. That if something were to happen, there's somebody else that has your back. I think that's probably a really, really solid piece of advice.
That is 100% a really solid piece of advice, and I honestly relate to that. Like, even if I have a team of 3 people, I will not be on a call with my client saying, like, I will be doing the work, I will be doing this, I will be doing that, I will be building out your website. It's going to be more like, hey, we are a team, and we will figure out how to get you from your desired from your current position to a desired outcome. So that's how you want to be. It's not about who you are, it's about how you represent yourself. And you have to
Right,
like,
absolutely.
yep.
Even if you're doing the work yourself, that's okay, because a lot of times we are doing the work ourselves, but you want to tell the client that you have a team behind you. Um, that's it. That's the mentality that you must always have.
So that is all, and hope you guys found this conversation valuable, and hopefully you can take the lessons Niwar Nasim left from his business journey and implement in your business to hopefully make sure that you grow your business and stay profitable. So that's all. Have a good day everyone, and thanks for tuning in this show. Make sure to subscribe this channel so you don't miss a future update.